Jerry and Debbie getting underway on this Friday, October 12th. Last live broadcast of the week. We'll have the encore at midnight Eastern Time tonight, and we will have the best of Take Two with Jerry and Debbie tomorrow at noon Eastern Time. That will be Navigating Grief. We did two parts of that this week. Powerful programs, and our producer Rich has chosen one of those to air as the best of tomorrow at noon Eastern. But today, Debbie, one of the things many people are talking about is high school football and other high school sports and activities. It's football Friday night across the United States, and that brings to mind the fact that our kids are involved in a lot of things that are part of everyday life, and we want to try to balance those with their lives and their good health and their things around the house and their faith lives and all of that. So we want to find out how people with kids do that.
Yeah, so how do you do that? How do you balance everything, keep your priorities straight, make sure faith really rules in your household, and sports bring such great enjoyment and great life's lessons. And so we want to hear about balancing faith, life, and sports. That's what Jerry titled it today, so that's what we're going to do. And this is a great show to go into the weekend because it gets us all prepared. Maybe we can start already to incorporate some of the things we learn from our fellow listeners into our homes. So all you got to do is call the number 1-833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986. Jerry, may I just switch gears for just a second? Because I got a couple things I just have to discuss with you, and we didn't get a chance to talk off the air, so I just thought I'd do it, well, with everybody listening. Is that okay?
I guess it's going to be.
Okay, good. Monday's show, you put on, Jesus, please find me a good parking space. What is that all about? I'm just curious.
Did you read on in the show description?
No, I didn't. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, well, it says, Jesus, please help find me a good parking space. Okay. And then the show description says, we are exhorted by Scripture and our faith to pray unceasingly. It doesn't set down any guidelines on what exactly we should pray for and not pray for. So the question is, should we pray for what would seem like insignificant things? Like, Jesus, should I have the cheeseburger or the bacon burger for lunch? Or Hail Mary, full of grace, help me find a parking place. Is finding a parking place close to the front door of the grocery store important enough, significant? Does it rise to the level of something we should pray for?
Okay.
Do we? As our daily lives go along, do we pray even for those things which they may be
insignificant?
If we're handicapped, we may want to pray that there's a handicapped, disabled parking spot close to the door. That would be different. But for the rest of us, we sometimes pray for trivial little things that in the big picture don't matter. So we're going to have a little talk about that on Monday.
Thank you for allowing me that, because I am traveling to Buffalo, New York for the Station of the Crosses fund drive on Sunday. So I thought I'd get prepared ahead of time, and I was thinking to myself, how am I going to do this? Is he trying to go with this? And thank you. That helps me tremendously. I'm sorry I had to switch gears there a little bit, but we are talking about faith, life, and sports today. Monday, we're talking about praying for those things that may seem like they're not that important, but should we do that? And that's wonderful. That'll give us time to really think about that. So thank you for that, Jerry. But we'd love to hear from you, dear listeners, about how you balance everything in your family. And if you could let us, kind of peek into the, behind the curtains a little bit and see what goes on in your household, it helps us to be able to grow in faith. 833-288-3986.
All right. Other ways to get a hold of us on the show and participate, you can text your comments or your questions. Text the letters EWTN to 55000. Wait for a small sound. There might be a little bit of a data rate, depending. Most cell phone plans have unlimited texting. Yours may be one of those, but just be sure and don't be caught off guard by a small data rate in case yours doesn't have that. If you're watching the video stream on YouTube or Facebook, you can post your questions or your comments there. But again, it's if you've got kids or you're raising youngins and, they, all of their friends are playing football, volleyball, cross country, baseball, track, cheerleading, swimming, what else? They're in clubs, they're in activities, they're in drama, all kinds of things going on. And I remember when I was in school, Debbie, it was, we would leave the house at 7 in the morning. We wouldn't get home sometimes until 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night. And God bless our mom, single mom, raising 5 of us, and she managed to make all of our games and activities. And somehow all 5 of us kids got to practices and all of the different meetings we had to get to and all of that stuff. But we weren't all that devout practicing as a Catholic faith family at that time. And so want to hear from those of you who are. You're trying to make sure that that faith element is there. You want to make sure that, Sundays are reserved for the Lord. And now, Debbie, they're trying to cram, soccer games and other activities on Sundays. And, weeknights, you might want your kids to go to youth group or Bible study or something like that, or go on a retreat. And sometimes, I can't go on that retreat because I got that tournament going on. So how do we balance? It's not just about sports, but balancing life, faith, sports, activities. Where is the line that you draw for your kids so that you make sure they're as well-rounded as possible, but they get all of what they should get in all of those areas?
Mm-hmm. This could be a very, very helpful conversation to so many families, especially starting out before we actually begin to sign up our children for those activities. You can start to get your priorities straight right up front, so you don't have to switch. You don't have to switch midstream and make some drastic changes in your household. You can get prepared ahead of time before all of those very, very tiresome, activities start. Because Jerry, it's a lot. It's a lot to do, especially when you have, 3, 4, 5 kids in the family. You're running. You're the soccer mom running all over the place, and then it's not just your kids. You're carting around. You're carting around all your friends, all your kids' friends, and all of the neighbors and everybody. So it becomes a monumental task sometimes. We want to hear from you, though. Please help us out. We've got a few on the lines making their voices known to Ryan, which is great, and they're going to be put on hold. They get to listen live and they jump right in, and there's room for you. So if you have something to say, believe me, you may say, well, everybody knows my story. It's like everybody else's story. Well, you may have a different tweak to it, different nuance to it that can really help another soul. 1-833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986.
Yeah, another perspective that you might want to share is how maybe it's different from when you grew up. Okay, I just shared that when I grew up, and next year will be the 40th high school reunion for my class, and we just pretty much participated in everything, and we still had time to do stuff, and go out and play in the woods and play with our friends and do things around the house and family activities and all of that. But maybe you don't want to let your kids be as involved as you were. So maybe things have changed since you've had your own kids.
This is Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. and hopefully you, because you're going to call in and maybe share how you keep that balance in your household. Okay, if you'll allow me, I'm going to just highlight a few things and digress just a tiny bit again, just to do a little housekeeping. EWTN Television and Radio will broadcast the canonization mass of 7 blesseds, and that's including Blessed Pope Paul VI, who's best known, obviously, as the Pope who promulgated Humanae Vitae, and Oscar Romero, known for his defense of human rights. Many of you may not know this, but I used to use the Oscar Romero prayer with all of my catechists every single year. So I actually loved the movie, read the story, and so this is going to be exciting. And that's going to be, the canonization will take place on for EWTN Television and Radio. We'll broadcast it Sunday at 3:30. Listen to this: 3:30 a.m. Eastern Time on EWTN TV and Radio. It's going to be exciting, though, folks, because this is happening, in our lifetime, and those are things that are very memorable. The other thing, too, Jerry, if I may, just because I can right now. I just wanted to highlight this just because they opened up the reservations for this. Jerry, you and I have talked about this. I'm actually speaking in Colorado, in Littleton, Colorado, November 27th for a women's Advent program at a Light of the World Roman Catholic Church. And I'm very excited because so many of you have called Light of the World and to ask if you could come and bring your daughter. It's a women's Advent program. And I titled it Overcoming Fear and Gaining True Peace. Overcoming fear and gaining true peace. So it kind of goes along with this topic because, you want peace in your household as well. But it's a great Advent program. They opened up the registration. Their seating is limited. Contact the church if you want to come. I'd love to meet you all in person. I always think it's wonderful, Jerry, when we get to put faces with the voices we hear on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, folks, be sure that you're a part of that and get your reservations and your tickets early. And you're going to enjoy that talk by Debbie. I can guarantee you that. And we love to hear from you on the program today, 833-288-3986, balancing life, faith, and sports, especially as a family. Some of these activities like sports, they can be so year-round and so intensive and so demanding on young people and expensive, not to mention the cost, that they can become almost religion-like for some families, even to the detriment of family life and a fervent practice of the faith. So we just want to know how when the sports and the activities and the clubs and the organizations that your kids want to belong to, and you want them to participate because this helps to form them and round them out as young adults and contributing adults to society. But how do you preserve the family time, their faith formation, and these sorts of things as they're growing up? These are the more important things, perhaps. 833-288-3986. Okay, Joanne, we'll get us started listening to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on Holy Family Radio in Arion, Michigan. Hi, Joanne. You're up first.
Hi, thank you. It's Adrian, Michigan, and thank you for taking my call.
Okay.
My kids are all college-bound now. We had 4, 6 years difference from the first to the last, and our rule kind of was that we set out in the beginning is that each kid could participate in only one extracurricular activity, whether it was a sports-related, music, any of the fine arts. Everyone was just allowed to participate in one because we knew that, we all want to be able to share in each other's accomplishments, and there's no way that could happen if we had more on our plate than we could handle. And even that was a struggle, with all 4 kids. So they all knew that, and if it got to the point where, maybe their team was good enough, it got to districts or whatever it was, if there was a game or a competition that was going to fall on a Sunday, we just let everybody know up front, our kids, the coaches, whatever, that we would not be there. That Sunday was reserved for church and family time, and we just kind of took a stand on it right from the beginning. So there were a lot of times where, my kids felt they were just kind of like the oddball ones that, oh, gosh, here they go again. But, they all survived. They're all either graduated from college or, sophomore, junior level in college, and we all turned out okay. And we were able to share in each other's activities while not making it so crazy that we hated when the activities happened. And I think that's the key, is that you have an internal gauge that it's too much when you have to start sacrificing what you're doing, or things become so complicated and actually become a drudgery rather than something that's enjoyable, then you've gone over the limit.
Wow, that's
and
awesome.
That's just kind of how we
I have a
played it
question.
out.
Yeah, I have a question if I can, Joanne. So what you said, one extracurricular activity. What if your child picked, let's say, baseball and said, I'm going to try out baseball, and they realized after a couple practices they really weren't good at it? Were they allowed to switch to another sport, or was that it? I mean, I'm just curious because that's what my kids did.
They could, yes. Yeah, they could actively participate in one thing. And,
Okay,
I
gotcha.
have to admit, our school was a small school, so it's not like they had tryouts. If you were on a team, you were in. So,
Gotcha.
But, had that been the case, or if they wouldn't have made the team, they were allowed to, select something to participate in. But it wasn't like, you're going to sign up for band, and you're going to be in a sport, and you're going to do drama and whatever. No.
Yeah, it's interesting, Joanne, because, I went to a school that had 150 students in the top 4 grades, actually under 150, because that was the breakoff point for the classification. We were a Class B school. This was in Washington State at the time. And so fewer than 150 in the top 4 grades. So here you're talking about, 30 some odd students per class. And basically, if every boy didn't turn out for football, we didn't have a team. It wasn't quite that way in basketball. But so there was a little bit of, I think, pressure on us to turn out. Not that we needed that pressure. I mean, we were all the boys. There were 4 boys in my family. We were all what we called jocks. We all wanted to play all the sports and everything.
Right.
So we were a little different than your family. We didn't have that. I admire and respect what your family did. I think it was very, very, very valuable. I don't think it's necessarily something every family has to do, but that was certainly the case.
Sure.
In
I mean,
our
if
family.
everyone did that, yeah. And I think the participation was good, and I think that's maybe like you clued on what's different nowadays than what it used to be before. I mean, I graduated 40 years ago from high school as well. It seemed, though, at that time, you played sports in a very close geographic region. Now, because of the way they've set up sports and you go by conferences and districts or whatever, you're traveling, crisscrossing the state. It's ridiculous. So even if you only wanted to participate in one sport, I think the way somehow the sports are set up, it forces the families to spend so much time away.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So it's really difficult. I do not envy people who are trying to raise their children now, because I think the sports programs are different. They're just not local anymore. You're traveling an hour and a half on the bus. Students are saying, "Oh, you get to leave your classroom at 2:00 because we have to drive an hour on the bus to go play this game."
Right.
I kind of think
I remember
that makes it rough, and I don't think it's to the advantage of the family life or the student life. There's a lot of pressure that goes on that. Then they lose all that time doing their homework and studying. It's really difficult. And when you say, oh, it's all in the name of sports, well, I'm not so sure they're learning the classic things that sports teaches them when they have so many other restrictions and things that inhibit it because of transportation times and time commitments, and you can only practice at from 5 in the morning to 6 because of whatever reason. So I think sports programs have changed a lot over the years, making it more difficult to maintain some semblance of familyhood.
True. Well, Joanne, it's interesting. I don't know if they allow this anymore, but I remember vividly as you were talking. I remember one time the kids. You talk about taking the bus, across town or across the other side of the state, and I remember one time the kids all pulled in very late at night, and we picked them all up from the school, and it was like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. So all the kids were exhausted. So guess what happened the next day? Nobody showed up for the classes until late in the day, and the principal said, "What's going on?" And we said, "Well, what do you expect if you had the bus pull in so late? The kids are exhausted." And it was kind of strange. Yeah. And I remember thinking, this is something odd about this. This doesn't seem to be working for our family. And
Right.
Joanne, did you ever do this too? did you ever just think to yourself, well, my child is not going to make it to the pros to that level, so why am I putting in like all this tremendous amount of effort and time and money and everything, and like you said, it can make them suffer in their academics or even homework or something like that, and you're thinking to yourself, come on, is this really that important? So you do have to weigh everything. So I think how you approached it is so healthy and so balanced, and I'm sure, like you said, all your children turned out really well, and that's wonderful. Jerry?
Yeah, well, to that end, as far as parents desiring that a child make it to college, at least, if not to the pros, I think what we're seeing nowadays a lot of times is something that Joanne touched upon, and that is, it's not so much maybe the parents, but the child is finding one sport that they want to zero in on, so they're maybe excluding all the other sports. However, that sport then is sort of almost on a year-round basis with practices and camps and leagues and tournaments, and they want to fine-tune their skills and become so very, very good at that one sport to enhance their chances of becoming, recruited by a college, drafted into the pros and so forth. So it may not be that they're playing a variety of different things, but the one thing they are participating in is still just inundating their time and taking them away from so many of these other things. So it really, it's an ever-evolving dynamic, and Joanne, you've kind of knocked the lid off this conversation here for us in a very, very helpful way, I think. So thank you from Adrian, Michigan. We appreciate that, and I know Debbie, our other callers, have some very helpful things that they are going to share as well on balancing life, faith, and sports here on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Okay, next up is Mary in Indianapolis, Indiana, on Sirius XM 130. Hi, Mary. Thanks for waiting and welcome to Take Two.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I really agree with the last caller. We have 6 children, and we did the same thing of just one activity at a time. But when we did get involved in different sports and we would have to travel for tournaments, part of the fun was finding the new church in town, and the team always knew that we at some point would leave the team activity, if it was a dinner or a breakfast, and we would go to Mass. So my kids knew that, like, all along, like, that's just part of what we do, and if, we're late for a game, then we're late for a game. But they also seemed to really like finding the new church in town and seeing, what it was like and, all of that. And then on the drive to, different games, we would say our rosary, or we would listen to, like Lighthouse Catholic Media. So we always, tried to make sure that, they were getting, a well-rounded, both the sports, because all 6 of my kids, played and did very well and, played in college. And so, we tried to make sure, because, back when I was a kid, Wednesday night was always no practice because it was, faith formation. Now it's a little trickier. They don't seem to quite honor that, that night for faith formation. So just trying to, make sure you still fit all of that in.
Yeah, I used to tell the kids in religious education. I used to actually talk to some of the coaches, and we actually encouraged the kids to come in their uniforms, to come straight from practice, come to religious education. We used to have that happen all the time, and there was a point one time I'll never forget. I looked out into the we had the opening classes in the gymnasium, and I looked out, and almost 3/4 of the kids were in some kind of cheerleading outfit or football outfit or something, and it was hilarious. And I actually took a picture of them because they were all exhausted, they were all falling asleep, but we were still able to get some understanding of God for them to experience. So I can totally understand that and relate to that. Jerry?
No, I think that's, I was kind of smiling when you said that, but, at least they were going to that, at least they were going to that and still getting that in. But yeah, I think it's important that they do that, Debbie, and that you accommodated that, and because you realized, as the person heading that program that, it's not your place necessarily to tell, to make, sort of demands upon families how they're going to raise their kids and what activities their kids can be involved in and so forth. You were the one, simply, you had to make the best of whatever situation you were handed. And so you
Exactly.
did that. You did that. And by allowing them to come in their uniforms and things like that, you showed a sort of acceptance of them being involved in these other things. And still, you show them, hey, this is important for me and for you that you be here for this time of your day and for this faith formation as well. And even if you have to come in that uniform, that's okay. It's kind of a come as you are type of thing. God accepts us as we are, even in your sports uniform. So get on over here and let's get some faith formation too.
Well, I'll even go one step up. The nuns used to feed them because they were hungry. They'd come from practice and they were hungry, and the nuns would have tamales waiting for them and all sorts of things for them. It was so sweet. And the kids would come, and they really liked it. It was a chance for them. So Mary, when you said that, it kind of made me a little bit sad in my heart, because the kids they loved coming to religious ed, but it was hard for them to find, they didn't have the gift of bilocation, so they couldn't be in two places at one time. So I just, we can understand what you're saying. Thank you so much, Mary.
Yeah, thank you, Mary, for the call. Appreciate that so much. We're talking today on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie about balancing life, faith, sports. And when we say life, we're talking about just the important formative things that kids need, young people need growing up. And that means time together with their parents, time together with their siblings, family time all together. Time just out knocking around the neighborhood, going out in the woods, in the forest, playing with their friends. And then, of course, faith formation, going to Mass, going to youth group, going to maybe a summer faith camp of some type, singing in the choir, being involved in the parish. And then sports or activities. Not all kids play sports. Maybe your kids aren't athletic, but maybe they're in band or drama or clubs or something like that. And they're still out on the go all the time. You never see them around the house. So how do you, as a parent, as a family, how do you juggle all of these things, make sure each of these components are well taken care of so that your kids are formed in all of these important areas, especially family time and the faith? We want to hear your take on that.
Just giggling all through the break, Jerry, because you're making me think of my children. I have two boys. The first one did all the sports, the basketball, the baseball, the soccer, went all the way how young boys do. So then the second one came along, and of course we had to do the exact same thing we did with the first one, because we wouldn't want the second one to grow up and say, you treated him better than you treated me. But the second one would go out into the grass and pick weeds or pop up daisies or do something. And we just finally said to him, can we just kind of hang this up? Can you try something else? Because this is costing us way way too much money and way too much time. And he did. He gave it up. He said, that's okay, Mom. We'll just forget it. So he went into his studies, and he's really, really smart. So there you go.
Wow.
But I'm just chuckling because that's hilarious how you have to kind of do stuff. You know, you have to kind of keep up with everybody. But some kids don't want to do all those competitive sports. Anyway, it just cracks me up. It's Friday. Okay, who's up next, Jerry? I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Ron is next.
Ron. Hi, Ron. Ron in Massachusetts on the Station of the Cross. Thanks for waiting, Ron, and welcome.
Thank you. I just wanted to bring up a little. I got a pre-statement because I want people to know that we're very sports-minded family. Sports are good. It's very healthy. But sports these days tend to rip families apart, like you mentioned at the beginning of the show, where one parent brings one kid who's this age to this town, another age, the other parent to that town. Then you got a family friend that brings one of the other children to another town, and sports tend to rip the family apart, especially on weekends these days. And we have a little unique situation that my family races bicycles. We have 8 boys and 2 girls, and 6 of the boys race. The girls like to cheer and come along, and the other ones are just too young right now. But cycling, the race is at the same place for every age group, just a different time of the day. So we travel together. Each race, we travel together and we stay together all day. We have a picnic, whatever. But it's much different than the other sports in keeping everyone together. And Mass, we could always get to Mass either Saturday night, Sunday morning, or Sunday evening around the races. We would never miss Mass. So it was a very Catholic-friendly situation, and I wanted to lay that out there, that there are a few sports that actually you can keep from tearing everybody in different directions.
Right. You can avoid the splintering of the siblings and the family. I'm curious, Ron, what was the attraction of the 10 kids, all 10 of your kids, into, I guess you said, cycle racing? That's kind of unusual. Was that a concerted effort on the part of you and your wife to sort of, to steer them in that direction, herd them in that direction, or did one of them get started and then the next child said, hey, that's pretty cool, I want to be like my older sibling, and they one after another? How did that happen?
Well, that's a good. Basically, I got into cycling in college just because I liked speed and I couldn't afford a fast car, so I got a bicycle and started racing bicycles. And one of my oldest son, saw me race, and I was in the lowest level of racing, but I would win the lowest level of racing. So he didn't know I was at the low level, but he saw winning, and he was like, oh, I want to try this. Right. So basically, he got into it, and then they followed suit. But we have another little spin, if I can give a small plug here. 2 of my kids have cystic fibrosis, and we found out which is basically a lung disease, a lung and digestive disease, and when they were born, the life expectancy was 18 years old. Now with modern technology, it's 38 years old average. But my boys were kind of bewildering the doctors because they raced bicycles, even though they had a lung disease. And it come to find out that this sport, or any actually vigorous aerobic exercise, is very therapeutic for cystic fibrosis patients. And so my boys kind of helped spearhead this whole thing. So it became very easy to stay in cycling because it was more than just sport. It was keeping my kids healthy. So not that cycling doesn't keep everyone should be healthy, right. Aerobically, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. But when you have a disease, that it actually helps stave off the symptoms. So my kids are very, very healthy and not in the hospital near as much as normal cystic fibrosis patients. So our team, Race CF, promotes that. We decided to start a nonprofit, and we promote and try to help people with cystic fibrosis to get into activities. If they don't want to bike, they don't need to. But to be, it's a little counterintuitive, and it wasn't done until recently. Kids would be held out of sports because they had a lung disease. Right. Now the doctors are starting to realize and push that, hey, you need to exercise and really work your lungs, even though you won't be as good as other people might be in your sport. Because of your issues, you're still getting healthy. My boys tended to actually be on a level playing field with even kids without cystic fibrosis. So that kind of brought the whole thing to the doctors, like, how are they doing so good? So,
Ron,
a little,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Ron, a couple things I just want to say real quickly, because you said so many things that I think families can really tap into. First off, you as being the father, you led the way with a passion that you had. Okay, your children followed. It turned into something that not only was, healthy for them. It was a sport you could all do together. You could keep your priorities straight in the family. But now it's turned into a ministry. You are fighting for the cause, and I think that is a wonderful thing. You've turned that sport into something much more than it ever could have been, just by saying, hey, I'm going to sign up for this sport and, put yourself on the roster. So what you did is you turned that into a lifestyle. You turned that into a mission. And I think that is fabulous. What you did, I think, is extraordinary. I just had to say that, Jerry. I know you're nodding your head, so it looks like you agree.
Well, yeah, I love the fact that so many benefits have come out of this. Like he said, this sort of, I don't know if it was a new discovery, but certainly for Ron and his family, the fact that this exercise could enhance the lives of the two children that he has that have CF, and then you then take that and really kind of develop a movement out of it and raise awareness in the lives of so many other people. Really, almost kind of change the narrative about cystic fibrosis, patients. Where, like you said, Ron, before they were saying, stay, don't exert yourself, don't get into activities like this because of the disease that you have. Whereas on the other hand, this actually enhances your health and can give you greater life longevity. So I think that the good that has come out of this, God works in amazingly mysterious ways sometimes, Ron, and he has absolutely done that through you and your family. So I know Debbie and I certainly, and everybody listening, has to feel really good and applaud you for all that you have done. I know you're not looking for the pat on the back, but certainly God has taken your situation, as difficult as it certainly has to be, and brought a lot of good out of it.
Yeah, it's an example for all of us. What do you think, Ron? Did we capture that pretty well?
You did pretty well. God works in mysterious ways. I want to tell you just two other things. My boys have missed Mass from racing one time, and they were in another country, and they were told the church would be Mass, and there wasn't. But a couple other times, these are my boys' decisions, not mine, but if you bring them up in the way that the church teaches, it from a young age, it really pays off. But they've not gone to two different countries for national events because the people involved weren't guaranteeing that they could get to Mass. And that was their choice. They said, hey, I can't get to Mass in China, so I'm not going to this 10-day race. And so that's just keeping God first. It all kind of pays off, and in the long run, it's better to miss something you think might be important or good if you're putting God ahead of it. And we try to do that, and then, as you said, it turned into this whole Race CF. So we have 3 people on the team that have cystic fibrosis besides my 2 sons, so 5. So wow. It is. Wow. We were hoping to save one person just to let them know, and we're up to that many. So racingtobreathe.org. If anyone knows anyone with cystic fibrosis, please go to that site and we can help them out.
racingtobreathe.org. We will put that on the take2show.com website, Ron, at the end of the program here today. Blessings to you. It just shows that if we are generous with God, He will be so much more generous with us and through us to other people. So thanks, Ron. And get this, Hopedale, Massachusetts is where he's calling from, Debbie. Hopedale.
Isn't that beautiful?
Thanks, Ron. You have given us a lot of hope and a lot of inspiration today with your call. Thank you so much for being a part of Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Wow.
We appreciate it, Ron. Yes, thank you again. Okay, Beth, I think you're getting, yes, you are, Beth. You are getting our Virtual Patience Award in Newburyport, Massachusetts on the app. Hi. I don't know what you're going to do with that award, Beth, but it's yours. It's yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Jerry and Debbie. Thanks for taking my call. That was interesting. I wrote down the racing to breathe. I called because we have 6 children and they all play sports. We haven't limited them to choosing one. I think it is important that they be involved in multiple sports as far as like throughout the year. Baseball, they all play hockey. They do cross country. My daughter, I have 1 girl and 5 boys. My daughter plays field hockey. So anyway, but along with that, on your topic, the church, going to church on Sunday, it's not an option, but it's something that I feel like we all enjoy, and we figure out what mass we're going to go to, and this just seems to be always a way to make sure that is fit in. And I think that maybe that's why everything else maybe falls into place. I don't know. It just seems like there's a lot on our plates, but if you kind of fit that in and make that your priority, then the rest of your, your weekend can kind of flow in a way that everyone can enjoy their activities. And if we go, I heard some of your calls with if we have a hockey tournament, let's say, then you find another mass and you find a church and it's new and different, and we look forward to that too. And I haven't found that, 1, we haven't had to miss mass, and 2, we haven't had to miss sporting events too. It seems like you can kind of find, masses to get to and get to so
well,
that was what I was gonna offer.
Beth, what you're saying is, you made mass a priority. You all pick, what time you're going to go and stuff like that. And you made me think when you said you had 6 kids, because I'm one of 6, and my family was very sports minded. My brothers played football all throughout school. My dad, of course, was a golfer, big avid golfer. I grew up playing sports my whole life, swimming, everything, drama, music, the whole 9 yards. Plus, all of us in high school had jobs. And guess what? The whole family all still went to mass on Sunday. And so it seemed to all work out. We all still made mass a priority. And that's what you're saying. And I think that is so true. I think sometimes when we as parents start to compromise and we say, okay, well, you kind of weigh the situation. Well, I don't want my kid to be benched, so I'm going to let them go on this, even though they might miss mass. When you start to compromise, then it's like a slippery slope. It keeps happening. And then before you know it, it's 2-3 weeks down the road and you haven't maybe attended mass, or the kids haven't attended. So I think that's why we're having this healthy discussion, because I think a lot of parents are in that predicament, and it's difficult and you don't know how to balance it. But if you, like you said, keep mass a priority, keep that the focus, and everything else will work out. Sounds like that's what you're saying, because it's worked for your family, correct?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, and I think they're better for it. And I also want to add, I know you were talking about praying, like, is anything free game to pray for? I bring sports into that, and I've shared it with my kids. I don't know if you've heard Mother Angelica talk about the story where the little boy called and he asked if he could, pray to Jesus for winning his baseball game. And she said, of course you can. And next time you get up, you say, Jesus, hit that ball. And he, called back and said, I said, Jesus hit that ball, and he got a home run, and they couldn't even find the ball. And she said, of course Jesus hit that ball. So I've shared that with my kids, and I think that that's okay to say a little prayer when you're going to play your sports. And at the same time, and I think that's why we like to go to mass, you also need to thank God for the, your athletic abilities and all of the gifts that you've been given. So you want to, happy to pray for what you, would like the outcome to be, but also happy to be grateful for what you've already received.
Right. Right. Well, and real quickly, I just want to say I agree with you. I used to step up to the first tee box during competitive golf, and I would make the sign of the cross. But I have to tell you, it was not only so that I kept the ball in the fairway. It was also that I didn't want to get hit by any clubs or any balls, because I've actually seen people getting hit by golf balls, and it's a horrible experience. And so I used to pray, please, Lord, don't let me get injured. And who would think you're going to get injured on a golf course? But you could. But yeah, no, I used to do that all the time. In fact, people knew right away I was Catholic because I'd make the sign of the cross. So,
Right.
But yeah.
That was a giveaway.
Yep, it's a giveaway. Exactly. What do you think, Jerry? Did you used to make the sign of the cross before you hit the ball, or what did you do?
I wasn't that tuned into my faith at that time of my life.
Okay. Did you ever see anybody do that?
I don't think so. When I was going through like Little League and high school and all of that, I make the sign of the cross now before I swim at the gym and stuff.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool.
Thanks, Beth, for your call.
Thanks,
we
Beth.
really appreciate that. Hey, speaking of sports and faith and life and just the connections of everything that we experience from womb to tomb, you're going to find it on churchpop.com. It's a service of EWTN. And they have an article on there right now, in fact, about a former speed skating Olympian turned Franciscan sister. And she reveals the secret to her inner peace in her compelling vocation story. Also, a link to an article on the surprising and unsurprising photo of John Wayne and his son venerating our Blessed Mother. As you may know, John Wayne converted to Catholicism on his deathbed, and there are many other wonderful stories on there as well, including how a priest celebrated Mass on top of Mount Kilimanjaro, the highest mountain in Africa. And then Debbie mentioned earlier in the show the 7 Blesseds who will be canonized on Sunday. Well, there's a story about the amazing miracles attributed to each one of them that gained them the right to be canonized. So, folks, this is a service of EWTN.com. It's got articles, lists, games, quizzes, and so much more. So you can get it sent to your inbox every day when you sign up at ChurchPop, P-O-P, churchpop.com, a service of EWTN.
Very nice. Very, very nice. Okay, next up is Bonnie, and Bonnie's been waiting patiently as well in Long Island, New York on Sirius XM 130. Hi, Bonnie. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Thank you. Good. Thank you for taking my call. I called because actually I live in New York, so as you can imagine, it's a very busy place, and my husband works very long days. And the way that we manage actually was fruit that was born out of 13 miscarriages, and we have 2 children here on earth and 13 in heaven. And it was through adoration, family adoration. Mm-hmm. So we go. We go once a week as a family, honor the Saturdays, the 5 first Saturdays, and then we also go to adoration during the week. I go with the children, and I take them to daily Mass. So I'm not able to go every single day because of their schedules, but I can go some days. My husband works a good 12 to 14-hour day because that's life. That's the lifestyle here in New York. But I'm able to cope with it through the Mass adoration, the Rosary. And we have great support through the Franciscan Friars of the Renewal and the missionaries of the Most Holy Eucharist who are up here in New York. And so they run adoration retreats. And so they'll always, your lifestyle is crazy in New York, but God gives you a way out. And we don't have television in the home. No TV. So that makes a lot of room. And the children, we have family rituals like, it sounds so silly, but just lighting candles when the colder weather hits. And the children are that's important to them, and having family walks in the evening. If we can fit that in, we do that as well. Of course, my son goes to Catholic school, and we have a connection to the Catholic homeschooling group on Long Island, which is a very vibrant group. So in the summers, they run the Vacation Bible School programs and a musical theater program at a church. So there's ways that we just try to keep the church and God as kind of, at the fore, and then I find that the chips sort of fall where they may.
Right.
So that's how we share. We also have, we don't have close family ties, so that probably helps a lot because there's a tremendous amount of detachment, unfortunately, but that's the situation we're in. So we share that with you.
Wow, that is very impressive. I was tempted to jest, Bonnie, but I didn't want it to be taken seriously by anybody. I was going to say you're going to have the most maladjusted kids in the world. I'm sure you probably hear that from a lot of people, people who don't understand what you're trying to do for your kids. I'm sure you and your husband, you prayerfully discern what is best for our kids. And when we look around at the world, and people are doing all the things that we have been talking about today, overloading their kids with stimuli and activities and sports. And not that these things are bad, but, gadgets and cell phones and social media and not paying attention to what they're doing, not doing things as a family. Those are the things I think that are going to adversely affect the kids. You're doing things, but you're almost a throwback family, Bonnie, to when families really did spend time together, when we didn't have these other things to turn to. So the things that you're doing actually were sort of the norm. And so, Debbie, I think, when you and I were growing up, Debbie, these were kind of the things that we did, things that you would suggest to families. We'd go out and catch frogs, and we would build tree forts and play in the woods and, play, tackle football in the front yard and things like this, things that almost would be unheard of nowadays. And some of the activities that Bonnie and her family are doing, it sounds really, really healthy to me anyway.
Well, and given what you have been through, Bonnie, you've been through so much, but you've got all those little ones in heaven, just surrounding your family, and so you have your family fixed on Jesus, and that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So you just have to, those are saints in training that you have, and it's really awesome. And I just want to say, keep going, because like Jerry said at the beginning, the world is going to be pushing in on you saying, is that fanatical? Is that too much? Is that, too overly? But you know what? It's working for your family, and you see the fruits of it and the spiritual gifts of it. So I would say, it sounds like you've got the strength to keep going on it. But have you gotten a little pushback from just the world?
Oh, yeah, it's not important to me what the world thinks. I think what Jesus thinks is all that's important. But I will say that I take what you say. It's very complimentary, but I take it for Jesus because, as you know, we're not supposed to accept praise, but he's the one that guides my family, the Blessed Mother. And if it wasn't for, and truly, the Franciscan Friars, the renewal, and the missionaries to the Most Holy Eucharist, when you stay tight with the religious and you ask for healings, every time you see a religious, just ask for them to bless you. That's something that I didn't grow up with, and I see it in my children and my godchildren, and the children run to the religious now asking for blessings because they've seen the suffering. But God does beautiful things. If he's in your family and there are people attacking you, which, all families have that, he could be just pulling you away from attachment to family members, and more attached to him through the Eucharist. And you can't see rightly without adoration. You can't see rightly without that. So I just share that. But truly, just all the praise be to God, and he's the one that does it.
Amen. We agree. Love it.
Yeah.
And well, Bonnie, I like what you said, that when you do get these weird looks and maybe comments from other people, that it doesn't bother you. It's all for the glory of Jesus and the honor of Mary. The reverse, though, is going to be perhaps true as well. These people may say and think these things, but when they see the fruit in your kids' lives, they're gonna scratch their heads and they're going to go, they may have something that I might want for my kids. So way to go. Keep it up.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, you're part of our family, Bonnie. You're part of the Take Two family, so it's awesome.
Thank you very much. God bless you. God bless you.
You too.
Bye
you
now.
too. Okay. Do we have time? We're cutting it very. I don't want to. I always say I don't want to pull a Jerry here. No, we don't. I'm so sorry, Alicia. I'm so sorry. I think it's Alicia or Alicia in Hermosa Beach. You can always email us. Take 2, the number 2 at EWTN.com. Same with Wendy in O'Fallon, Missouri. You can email us. The others as well. Please forgive us. You can hear the music, and we got to talk about Monday's show. We're going to be talking about praying for parking spaces and little things that go on in our life. Is it okay to do that? It's going to be an interesting conversation. I'm looking forward to it. And Jerry, I'm heading off to Buffalo, New York, so pray for us. We want a really good, fun drive at the Station of the Cross. So, and I want to stay warm because remember, I'm from Arizona.
That's right. It is pledge drive season around the country. EWTN needs your help. Your local station and network needs your financial help and your prayers. More than ever, we need the Catholic voice, the Catholic place at the media table. So wish Debbie safe travels. Pray for her. Pray for us. You're always in our prayers, and we hope that you have a beautiful and blessed weekend.